My sister and I got married on the same day. Our stepmother schemed to have us switch wedding carriages. Her daughter married the son of the wealthiest man in the city, while I ended up marrying the mute tofu seller from the market. But they don't know my current husband is actually the biological son of the richest man. 1. My mother was the daughter of an official family in the capital, who fell in love with a poor teacher. She eloped with my father to Qingshui town, where I was born. When I was 10 years old, my mother passed away from illness, and my father remarried. My stepmother, Chen Xiaojuan, came with her 6-year-old daughter. My marriage to Lin Hexuan, the son of the wealthiest man, was originally arranged by my mother and Mrs. Linear. When my younger sister, Shen Piazi, was playing in the lake as a child, she nearly lost her life and was saved by the mute Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun's mother had no other request, only asking that my sister marry into the Xiao family. A life-saving kindness deserves to be repaid with one's own self, so my father agreed to the marriage. My sister and I were married on the same day. Our stepmother saw us off, placing a gold bracelet on one wrist and a silver one on the other. She then covered our heads with red veils and entrusted us to our respective matchmakers. Sitting in the bridal sedan, I touched the silver bracelet on my wrist, recalling my mother's final words. Marriage is a woman's destiny. My life may have been muddled, but you must marry into the Lin family. Her eyes held many emotions I couldn't understand. Could it be she regretted marrying my father? 2. The wedding sedan stopped, and the groom carried me off the sedan on his back, a broad, sturdy back. Through the gap in my bridal veil, I saw the wooden threshold and was startled, struggling to get down. The matchmaker exclaimed in a panic, "It's unlucky for the bride to step down before entering the house." I lifted the veil and Xiao Yun stood before me, looking utterly bewildered. "I am Shen Piao, the one to be married into the Lin family." Ignoring the shouts from the crowd behind me, I hurriedly ran toward the direction of the Lin residence. In the main hall of the Lin residence, the newlyweds had already completed their bows to the elders, and the guests were clamoring to tease the couple in the bridal chamber. Dressed in a red gown, I made my way through the crowd and stepped into the hall. "I am the true bride of the Lin family." All eyes turned to me. Lin Hexuan lifted the veil of the bride before him, and Shen Piazi froze in shock. The head of the Lin family stomped his feet anxiously. What are we to do now?" Someone nearby remarked, "Since you've already bowed to the parents, why not just go with the flow?" I protested. The engagement was arranged by my mother and Lady Lin, so naturally. "Since you've already entered the Xiao family, how could you become a bride of the Lin family?" The one speaking now is the current Mrs. Lin, not the one who made the marriage agreement with my mother. She is Mr. Lin's second wife, not Lin Hexuan's birth mother. My father and stepmother rushed in after me. His expression was rigid as he said in a slow, deliberate tone, "Pei Yu, go back to the Xiao family." He pulled me closer and whispered in my ear, "Pei Ji is your half-sister, flesh and blood. As the older sister, you should let her have this." It felt as though a thunderbolt had struck me. Thousands of needles pierced my heart, and a fine, searing pain spread throughout my entire body. No wonder my mother had said such things on her deathbed. The marriage agreement back then only mentioned a union between the Lin and Shen families. It never specified which daughter of the Shen family was to be married. "Your sister and He Xian have already completed the wedding ceremony. Pei Yu, if you insist on marrying into the Lin family, wouldn't you be disregarding Pei Ji's reputation?" Chen Xiaojuan's every word painted me as the villain, and murmurs of disapproval swirled around me. 3. I looked at Lin Hexuan, who lowered his eyes, not daring to meet my gaze, and took a few steps back. Before the engagement, we had met a few times, always keeping a proper distance. Mother said he was a gentle and refined gentleman who would surely treat me very well, but now he did nothing. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Mother's judgment of men was truly poor. A man with no backbone like this was not worth marrying. I said coldly, "Then I wish my sister and her husband a happy union for 100 years. My hands hung limply at my sides as I walked out of the Lin residence under everyone's gaze. Behind me came sounds of laughter and cheerful clamor. On the street, I wandered aimlessly for a long time, not knowing when the rain began to fall, soaking my clothes. Suddenly an umbrella appeared above my head. Looking up, I saw Xiao Yun. He gestured to me and I understood. He said the rain was too heavy and asked me to go home with him first. In the vast Qingshui town, where else could I go? 4. The rain grew heavier and heavier, and both Xiao Yun's and my clothes were drenched. When we returned to the Xiao residence, the guests had already dispersed. Xiao's mother hurried over, urging us to change our clothes quickly. "The luggage your parents sent earlier has already been placed in your room." I entered the house and opened the 2 suitcases. Sure enough, they contained my clothes. A wave of bitterness washed over me. That couple had planned this all along, determined to marry me into the Xiao family. Xiao Yun picked up his own clothes and walked into the side room, closing the door behind him to give me privacy. After changing, I sat on the bed, uncertain of where to go from here. A knock came at the door and Xiao Yun stood outside, gesturing for me to come eat. I followed him to the front hall, where his mother kindly invited me to sit, saying with a gentle expression, "After all that commotion, you must be hungry. Eat quickly, no need to be reserved." I picked up my bowl and chopsticks, thinking I'd stay at the Xiao family's place for one night and decide tomorrow. At night, Xiao Yun stayed in a side room, while I slept in the bedroom. In the middle of the night, I felt feverish all over, my limbs weak and limp. In a hazy state, I dreamed of my mother. She was teaching me to read women's codes and precepts, just as she had always taught me to be well-mannered and sensible since childhood. I cried and complained to her, "Mother, you only taught me how to be a good wife, but never taught me how to stand on my own and make my way in the world." A warm sensation touched my lips, and I mustered all my strength to lift my eyelids. Mrs. Xiao sat by the bed, feeding me medicine spoonful by spoonful. "You've caught a chill from the rain. Hurry and take your medicine." She called me Yuer, only my mother used to call me that. Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes, and I murmured mother under my breath. I heard Madame Xiao respond with a soft mm. 5. I lay in bed in a daze for 3 days, and Mother Xiao kept watch by my bedside for 3 days. Early in the morning, I dressed neatly, and Mother Xiao knocked on the door and entered. She placed breakfast on the table, urged me to eat, and opened the window in the room for me. "The weather is quite lovely today, Yuer. Go and bask in the sun." Having not left the bed for a long time, my legs felt weak. I leaned against the door frame, watching Xiao Yun in the courtyard grinding grain. He was shirtless, his skin dark and muscles taut, sweat glistening even more brilliantly under the sunlight. For a moment, I was utterly captivated. Xiao's mother walked over. "Yuer, would you like to give it a try and help Yuner with the grinding?" Xiao's mother carefully taught me, smiling as she said, "Yuer is clever and quick-wit, you'll pick it up in no time. I'll go check on the stall." After 3 days without setting up, the regulars will start complaining. Xiao Yun pushed the millstone with great effort, his eyes lowered, his eyelashes thick and long, his nose straight and tall. Such a handsome face, yet he was a mute. I sighed inwardly, my body feeling somewhat weak under the sun's glare, nearly causing me to fall. Xiao Yun reacted quickly, firmly catching me. Realizing his impropriety, he released his grip and bowed slightly to me. I curled up the corners of my mouth, no worries, and continued helping him grind. 6. Along with Xiao Yun, I delivered the freshly made tofu to the stall. The aunt selling vegetables at the next stall smiled and said, "Aunt Xiao is truly blessed, with both her son and daughter-in-law here to help you." I felt my ears heat up instantly upon hearing the aunt nearby say that the Xiao family's tofu was famously delicious in Qingshui town. And indeed it was, selling out completely in less than 2 hours. On the way home, she affectionately looped her arm through mine and murmured, "Yuer, I know you've been wronged. If you want to return to the Shen family, you may go, I won't stop you. But if you're willing to stay, I will treat you as my own daughter." She glanced at Xiao Yun, who was pushing the cart ahead of us, and lowered her voice. "Yuner's father and I were married for many years without children. Yuner is a child I found in the back alley. When I picked him up, he was perfectly healthy except he couldn't cry. His father passed away early, and I raised him alone. Please don't blame me for using gratitude to pressure you into this marriage. If I were gone, he would be left all alone in this world. That you ended up in our family even by chance, must be fate." As she spoke with deep emotion, her eyes grew misty. Mother Xiao took my hand and pressed a pouch of silver into my palm. "Take this money. Whether you stay or go, it belongs to you. This money I cannot accept. Yuer, consider it your wages for today." Wages? I never imagined that I, too, could earn wages. "Sister." I was still savoring Mrs. Xiao's words when I looked up and saw Shen Piazi and Lin Hexuan standing at the entrance of the Xiao residence, with servants by their sides carrying many gifts. I frowned. "What are you doing here?" Shen Piazi grabbed my hand without hesitation. "I heard you were ill, so I came to see for myself. In Qingshui town, there really isn't anything that can be kept hidden from the Lin family." 7. Xiao's mother unlocked the door and invited Shen Piazi and Lin Hexuan inside. Shen Piazi took the gifts from the servants' hands, smiling as warmly as a spring breeze. "Now that you're better, I can finally rest easy. These supplements are for you to regain your strength." We sat in the hall and Xiao Yun brought tea, handing it to the two of them. Looking closely at Shen Piazi, she was adorned with jewels and pearls, dressed in fine silks and satins, a stark contrast to the simplicity of the Xiao family's house. Taking the teacup from Xiao Yun, I gestured for him to sit down and said coldly, "Take it back. I don't want it." Shen Piazi said softly, "Sister, are you blaming me? I had no choice. The wedding has already taken place. If we were to change it now, it might invite gossip and tarnish the family's reputation. She took out a handkerchief, pretending to wipe a tear from the corner of her eye. The bright, translucent jade ring on her finger was particularly eye-catching. Shen Piazi didn't seem to be here to apologize, it was more like she had come to show off. Seeing my sullen silence, she turned her watery eyes toward Xiaoyun, brother-in-law. If sister won't accept it, then you take it. Xiaoyun waved his hand in refusal, but the word brother-in-law did help solidify my identity as the Xiao family's daughter-in-law. Since they have no use for it, let's just. The atmosphere grew tense as Lin Hexuan stood up, intending to leave. Husband, what are you doing? We agreed to come see sister. How can you get up and leave the moment we sit down? Lin Hexuan's expression turned ugly as he said impatiently. Didn't they just refuse the kindness? Watching them put on a show right in front of me, a wave of disgust surged into my heart. 8. If you two want to perform a duet, go back and do it behind closed doors. I turned my back on them, and Xiaoyun also stood up, making a gesture to see them out. They turned around with dark expressions, their steps just crossing the threshold, when I sternly called out, "Stop." Shen Piazi looked back, wearing a triumphant expression. Has my sister changed her mind? Take these things of yours with you, I said, pointing at the gifts on the table, my face cold. She looked embarrassed, giving a glance to signal the servants to come in and take them away. After they had gone some distance, I closed the gate tightly. Xiaoyun gave me a meaningful look, then turned and went to the kitchen to help his mother with the cooking. After finishing dinner, I sat by the window, listening to the rustling north wind tapping against the window frame. A dark figure flashed past my eyes. It was Xiaoyun. I asked him what he was going to do, but I couldn't make sense of his movements. Xiao's mother came out draped in a cloak. It's a sudden cold spell in early spring. He went to the fields to check on the seedlings, worried they might freeze. The mother and son made as if to leave, but I stopped them. I'll go. You're getting on in years, please rest well. Xiao's mother glanced at Xiaoyun and nodded in agreement. Xiaoyun took me to the nearby woodshed to gather a few bundles of dry straw. He taught me how to lay the straw over the seedlings to keep them warm. No sooner had it been placed than it was blown away by the wind, and after several attempts, Xiaoyun fetched a wooden board to weigh it down. I asked in confusion, won't that crush the seedlings? Xiaoyun shrugged helplessly and turned to sit on the ridge of the field. I sat down beside him. It seemed he was prepared to stay here for the night. In the quiet of the long night, I suddenly found myself missing my mother. Xiaoyun, have you ever seen snow? I turned to look at him, his eyes dark as ink. He shook his head. Clearwater Town was in the south, where it didn't snow in winter. Mother was born in the capital, and when I was little, she used to tell me about the scenes of snowfall in the capital. Snowflakes danced, blanketing houses and mountains in silver, everything before the eyes pure and white. I murmured to myself, I really want to see snow. Xiaoyun just smiled. The wind cut across my face like a knife, and I couldn't help but shiver. He took off his outer robe and draped it over my shoulders. I looked up and asked him, aren't you cold? He shook his head and my eyelids began to grow heavy. I fell asleep at some point, nestled in a broad, warm embrace. When I woke up, I was lying in bed, still clutching Xiaoyun's outer robe in my hand. Did he carry me back? 9. A bout of coughing sounded from outside the house. Pushing the door open, I saw Xiaoyun grinding at the millstone. I walked up to him and asked softly, you gave me your robe yesterday. Did you catch a chill? He waved his hand dismissively and continued pushing the millstone. I stepped into the Xiao family's kitchen for the first time. Mother used to say ginger tea can ward off the cold. Following the way our family cook used to do it, I started making a fire to boil water. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't light that fire starter. Xiaoyun walked in and I looked at him helplessly. I wanted to make you some ginger tea, but this fire starter it just won't catch. The corner of his mouth lifted, probably laughing at my clumsiness. His rough, large hand covered mine as he took the other end, gave it a gentle scrape, and the fire lit at once. He grabbed my hand, picked up some dry grass by the stove, and lit the fire. His stern profile, illuminated by the flames, looked even more handsome. I blushed and pulled my hand away, my heart pounding. If he weren't mute, he would surely be the object of many women's admiration. Looking around, I asked him, where is the ginger? Xiaoyun chuckled softly, pushing me out the door. His gesture meant that he would handle it himself. 10. After Xiaoyun finished the ginger soup, we went together to the stall to deliver the tofu. Xiao's mother was swamped with work, so I stayed behind to help collect the money, while she sent Xiaoyun to the village to collect beans. At this market, half of the stall owners were women. Though illiterate, each of them had their own unique skills. And Tao, who sold pork, could cut a piece with perfect weight in a single stroke. Sister Chen, who sold herbal tea, remembered the taste preferences of every customer. Mother said that a woman's greatest future lies in marriage. From a young age, she taught me to read, practice needlework, manage account books, and oversee servants. But now, I realize there is another possibility for a woman's life. Without relying on a husband, one can also carve out a place in the world. Just as we were about to pack up the stall, Mother Xiao slipped another bag of money into my hand. This is your wages for today. I can't take it. I've been living and eating at your place for free. She covered my mouth. If you work, you get paid. Whether you are my daughter-in-law or not, this money is rightfully yours. Suddenly, the money bag in my hand felt heavy. Xiao's mother picked up the remaining bit of soy milk, placed it on the cart, and muttered to herself, "What a pity. It'll have to be poured out again." I remembered the savory tofu pudding I had eaten in the north as a child. My mother would mix the condiments for me: soy sauce, salt, Sichuan peppercorns, sesame seeds, and sometimes a bit of chili, stirring it all together with the tofu pudding. It tasted wonderful. I asked, "Have you ever thought about selling tofu pudding? We're a bit too busy for just the two of us. If any customers want these soy milks, just give it away, otherwise it'll be fed to the pigs by the farmers. Aren't I here for you?" Xiao's mother's eyes lit up. Are you willing to stay? I nodded. You're my employer, didn't you just pay me my wages? Her eyes glistened with tears as she repeatedly said, "Good." 11. The next day, we got up early. Mother Xiao prepared the tofu pudding, and I seasoned it from memory. Xiao Yun went to the woodshed and found some broken tables and chairs, repaired them, and put them to use again. We didn't just sell tofu, we also sold tofu pudding, both savory and sweet. People found it novel, and it tasted special. The business grew better and better, and Mother Xiao gave me more wages each day. In the evening, I lit a candle and kept the accounts. Xiao Yun sat beside me, handing over a cup of water. I asked him, "Do you know how? If I leave someday, who will take care of the books?" He shook his head. I smiled and said, "Shall I teach you?" Xiao's mother came in. Yuner never went to school, he can barely recognize a few characters. It's okay, I can teach him. I turned my face to meet his gaze, his eyes full of anticipation, and I shyly lowered my head. I took out the copybook my mother had made from the clothes chest and started teaching him the simplest characters. Once Xiao Yun learned to write, he could express anything he wanted on paper in the future. The tofu pudding stall was doing very well, with tables extending to the neighboring stall. Xiao's mother and I discussed renting a storefront to run the business. After looking at several shops, only the one on Zhenggan Street suited us best, though the rent was also the highest. According to the shopkeeper, the main landlord of this storefront was the Lin family. "Mrs. Xiao, isn't your daughter-in-law sisters with Mrs. Lin? Why not go discuss it with her?" Mother Xiao wore an awkward expression and quickly declined. No. She knew all too well the tangled history behind it and couldn't bear to put me in a difficult position. We spent the entire day wandering around town, and when we returned, Xiao Yun boiled water to soak Mother Xiao's feet. At the table in the hall, I caught sight of the paper he had been practicing his calligraphy on. Those papers were densely covered with my name, Shen Piyo. He walked in, hastily snatched the papers and hid them behind his back, accidentally brushing against the candle flame, causing the papers to catch fire. Seeing this, Xiao Yun tried to pat out the fire with his hand, but was burned and quickly withdrew it. I picked up the teacup from the table and poured it over, extinguishing the fire. He picked up the scraps of paper that had turned to ashes, his face full of regret. I met his gaze, like ripples stirring in spring water, took a deep breath, and asked him, "Are they all my names?" He didn't shy away either, meeting my eyes. The candlelight flickered in the evening breeze, casting mottled shadows across his face. Xiao Yun picked up a brush, eager to write something. Just as the brush touched the paper, he heard his mother calling, "Yuner, I've brewed it. You can take it out now." Gathering my thoughts, my ears burning with heat, I turned away without looking at him. Behind me came the sound of his footsteps gradually fading into the distance. 12. The sky was just beginning to lighten as I got out of bed, intending to check on the beans I had soaked the night before. As soon as I stepped outside, I collided with a firm chest. Taking 2 steps back, Xiao Yun handed me a note. It read, "I am going to harvest the beans. Would you like to come? It's much easier with someone who can talk. We can bargain together." I nodded in agreement and set off on the road with him. The negotiation for purchasing beans went smoothly. We needed a stable supply, and after discussing with 2 suppliers who offered good quality at a low price, they agreed to deliver the goods the next day. I walked briskly along the ridge of the field, while Xiao Yun, afraid I might stumble, spread his arms and carefully protected me from behind. When we reached the city gate, a carriage stopped in front of us, and Lin Hexuan stepped down from the vehicle. "Piyo, I have something to say to you." He frowned as he looked at me, then glanced at Xiao Yun behind me. "If you have something to say, brother-in-law, speak it here." He wanted to take my arm, but Xiao Yun stopped him. Lin Hexuan's voice was urgent, saying, "Pu, wait for me a while longer, I'll bring you back to the mansion." I frowned. "Brother-in-law, what do you mean by that? I know you're only nominally husband and wife. Once I persuade my father, I'll marry you as my second wife." He took 2 steps forward and Xiao Yun reached out to push him away. "Lin Hexuan, if you truly intended to marry me, you should have stood up in the hall that day. I am not bound to marry you, so let us not mention this again." Recalling his timid demeanor from that day, I couldn't help but let out a light laugh. It was fortunate that the marriage did not happen, or else it would have been a lifetime of confusion. Lin Hexuan opened his mouth as if to speak, but in the end, he swallowed his words. I took Xiao Yun by the hand and walked into the city. When we arrived at the doorstep, Xiao Yun's mother saw us and greeted us with a warm smile, saying, "Come quickly and help set the table." 13. I had a restless night and was awakened by the sound of someone pushing the door open just as dawn began to break at the horizon. During last night's dinner, Xiao's mother had mentioned that she would send Xiao Yun to deliver tofu to the tavern today. I dressed and washed up, and as soon as I pushed the door open, something wrapped in a handkerchief fell from the door frame. Opening it, I found an exquisitely crafted, delicate silver hairpin. There was also a note, "A hairpin for your dark tresses, to convey my feelings." A strange emotion welled up in my chest, my heart tightening and growing warm. I rushed into the hall and called out Xiao Yun's name. Xiao's mother came in. "Yuner went to deliver tofu, just left." I'm going to find him, I thought, wanting to see him quickly. The streets were sparsely populated, and I soon spotted a figure pushing a cart. I hurried forward. "Xiao Yun." He turned to look at me, opening his mouth without a word, yet that silence spoke volumes beyond words. At that moment, sounds of a fight came from ahead. A man in black came running, and our cart blocked his path. In a fit of rage, he swung his blade at me. Xiao Yun reached out with his hand, gripping the blade tightly. Blood streamed down his arm. Seeing the constable was about to catch up, the man in black kicked our cart aside and ran off into the distance. "Are you all right?" A constable stopped, looking at Xiao Yun's blood-covered hands. "Go to the clinic quickly." I parked the cart by the roadside, took Xiao Yun, and went to knock on the door of the clinic. It was still early and Dr. Li had just gotten up. "Doctor, is Xiao Yun's injury serious?" Dr. Li applied the ointment while shaking his head. "No bones or tendons were harmed. Your husband took a knife for you with his bare hands. What a blessing you have, madam." My face flushed red, and my heart relaxed with relief. Dr. Li added, "Brother Xiao doesn't seem to feel pain at all, he didn't utter a single groan." I replied awkwardly, "He's mute." "Mute?" A man in white emerged from the back hall. "May I take a look?" I looked at Dr. Li with confusion. He said, "This is my nephew, surnamed Xue. He studied under a royal physician in the palace. Why not let him take a look? Perhaps Xiao Lang's muteness can be cured." Xiao Yun tightly grasped my hand, nodded, and I said okay. 14. Physician Xue checked his pulse, examined his mouth and tongue, and then felt his neck. After a moment of silence, he said, "Xiao Lang's throat has a blockage, it's not congenital." My heart leaped with joy. "Can it be treated?" "There's a missing ingredient in the medicine, only available in the palace. I'll be returning to the capital in a few days and can inquire for you. With the right medicine and acupuncture, it might be effective." "Thank you, Physician Xue. No matter the cost, please cure my husband's muteness." Dr. Li chuckled. "It seems the two of you share a deep bond as husband and wife." I spoke without thinking, then glanced at Xiao Yun and shyly lowered my head. Unable to deliver the tofu, we returned the money to the restaurant and pushed the cart home. After recounting what had just happened to Xiao Yun's mother in detail, she turned pale with fright and urged us to be more careful in the future. Xiao Yun's hand was injured, so he couldn't push the millstone. His mother comforted me, saying it was a good opportunity to rest for a few days and take our time choosing a shop. In the evening, as I changed Xiao Yun's bandages, I noticed a bluish-purple birthmark on the inside of his wrist and asked, "Have you had this since childhood?" He nodded. The medicine stung slightly as it touched the wound, and he pursed his lips. I gently blew on it, saying, "Bear with it a little." He opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound, frustrated and annoyed. I couldn't help but smile. "I know what you want to say. Give me some time to think it over, okay? I can't tell if what I feel for you is gratitude or something else. It's also confusing, and it wouldn't be fair to either of us to rush." Xiao Yun nodded. Just then, his mother walked in, carrying warm water to wash him. I was about to step out when she called me back. "The shopkeeper from Zhenggan Street came by this morning. He said we could rent the shop at a lower price." I thought to myself, it was probably Lin Hexuan who had given the order. Mother Xiao continued, "I turned it down. We'll find another place." 15. A few days later, we chose a shop, right at the intersection of the old market street, so it would be easy for our regular customers to find. As Mother Xiao and I were about to leave, we ran into the young servant from the medical clinic. He said that physician Shui had returned from the capital and wanted me to go pick up the medicine. The three of us went together to collect the medicine, and physician Shui performed acupuncture on Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun's mother asked physician Shui when his illness could be cured. The physician shook his head and said it had been delayed for too long, he couldn't guarantee a complete recovery. Xiao's mother blamed herself, thinking that Xiao Yun was born mute and never considered seeking treatment, which delayed his progress for so many years. Xiao Yun gently patted his mother's back, comforting her. Soon, our new shop will open and all the neighbors will come to show their support. I've mixed a few new flavors and everyone has been full of praise. I've heard before that the eldest daughter of the Shen family is well-read and accomplished in poetry and literature, but I never imagined she'd be so capable in business as well. Mrs. Xiao is truly blessed to have such a wonderful daughter-in-law. Mrs. Xiao beamed with joy, but corrected, not a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. A stranger emerged from the crowd, carefully sizing up Xiao Yun. I asked, what does she want? He can't speak. When she caught sight of the birthmark on the inside of Xiao Yun's wrist, her pupils dilated in shock, and she turned and left without a word. We found it strange, and Tao explained that she had just moved to town, earning a living by washing clothes for others and living in the back alley. Everyone called her Aunt Chi. With customers coming and going in the shop, the conversation soon moved on to other topics. As the sky grew dark, we prepared to close the shop. Footsteps sounded from behind. Lin Hexuan stood under the moonlight, his expression stiff. Seeing the atmosphere grow tense, Mrs. Xiao and Xiao Yun left first, whispering in my ear, talk it out with him. Pei Yu, why not rent that shop? He took a step toward me, and I caught a whiff of alcohol on his breath. I replied with extreme impatience, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Pei Yu, I have my own difficulties too. My stepmother holds all the power, I simply can't. Suppressing my anger, I cut him off. I'm not a fool. I can still tell the difference between having no choice and being insincere. I stared at him coldly and he avoided my gaze. You're just unwilling to accept that I can live well without marrying into the Lin family. You've been giving me small favors, trying to test my heart and disrupt my life. His thoughts laid bare, Lin Hexuan's face turned pale. I spoke with detached indifference, have you ever thought about your wife at home? No matter what means she used to marry into your family, you should treat her well since you married her. Have you ever considered her while you've been entangled with me like this? With those words, I walked away quickly, hearing his furious roar from behind, what's so great about that mute? 16. Returning home, Xiao Yun and his mother were waiting for me to have dinner. After finishing the evening meal, I helped Xiao's mother clear the dishes, but she stopped me, saying I didn't need to help, she could manage it alone. Xiao Yun's hand injury had already healed and he was practicing calligraphy nearby. I looked down and saw that his handwriting had improved even more. Where did you learn this phrase? I took out the note that had been wrapped around the silver hairpin that day. He wrote, I learned it from the books you lent me. Do you understand what this means? He nodded, his hand moving carefully. I felt a rough touch at my fingertips, which was soon enveloped by his large hand. The lantern with the character for double happiness on the door swayed gently, its light and shadows drifting. It is the wind that stirs and also the heart. In the dim, faint yellow candle light, our gazes intertwine, time stands still, and our hearts flutter like startled deer. After a long while, I speak up, Xiao Yun. Before I can finish, he slips a note into my hand and strolls out the door. On the note, it reads, Yu, I have affection for you, with both sincerity and apprehension. My head buzzes, recalling that first encounter by the lake years ago. The summer sun was scorching and Peiji dragged me to go play in the water. Only later did we realize that the lake, which looked like a shallow shore, was actually unfathomably deep. I couldn't swim, so I waited for her on the bank. After a while, her cries for help came from the center of the lake. I rushed to get help and ran into Xiao Yun carrying his load. He threw down the baskets, raced to the lake, and saved Shen Piazi. Big brother, thank you. May I ask which family's young master you are? My father will surely reward you generously. He waved his hand and walked away, drenched and glistening all over under the scorching sun. Later, my father inquired repeatedly and found out that he was from the Xiao family, who sold tofu. The sincere shadow of that youth now overlapped with the present him in my mind, like a seed taking root and sprouting in my heart. 17. It's getting late. Go rest. Mother Xiao came in, interrupting my thoughts. Lying in bed, I thought that what my mother had said wasn't entirely right. What matters most for a woman is not marriage, but the ability to establish herself and secure a livelihood. One can love others, but must never lose oneself in the process. My mother was clearly a daughter of an official's family, living in luxury and comfort, yet she foolishly fell in love with my heartless father. She severed all ties with her relatives just to elope here with him, leaving herself with no way back, and died young from melancholy. Lost in these thoughts, I eventually fell asleep, only to be awakened early in the morning by a knock at the door. Xiao Yun opened the door to find the constable he had encountered that day standing there. Panting heavily, the man said, "Madam, I've had quite a time searching for you and your husband. We've caught the thief from the other day. Please come with me to the yamen to help identify him." Constable Li said that the thief, still harboring ill intentions, went to the Lin residence in the dead of night to steal. He was caught red-handed by the formidable Lin family servants. In the courtroom, the entrance was surrounded 3 layers deep inside and out. The 2 elders of the Lin family sat on the side, with Lin Hexuan and Shen Piazi standing beside them. "Take a look, is he the one who injured you that day?" Constable Li grabbed the tightly bound man. Xiao Yun looked him over. That day, he had covered half his face, but I remember those fierce eyes. "That's him. Audacious thief, you have stolen from many households and the evidence is irrefutable. Do you have anything to say? Please, I beg for your mercy." A woman rushed out from the crowd and knelt in the middle of the hall. She turned her face to look at us. I fixed my gaze and recognized her. It was 7th Aunt, the one who had looked so flustered in the shop that day. 7th Aunt sobbed as she knelt before Master Lin, clutching at his trouser leg. "Master, I am Qi Qiao, the one who served by the madam's side. Don't you recognize me? I beg you, please spare my son." Master Lin kicked her away with a foot. "I don't care who you are. Stealing from my family warrants severe punishment." She then turned her gaze to Lin Hexuan, who stood nearby. "Young master, I held you when you were a child. Have you forgotten? Please save my son." Lin Hexuan waved his hand dismissively, his voice icy cold. "I don't remember." She seemed to have suffered a great shock, her eyes red and swollen, her voice hoarse as she cried out, "You can't just ignore this. He's your own brother, your own flesh and blood, your own full-blooded sibling." And 7 stood up straight, her words like sobs. Master Lin wandered through the flower fields, with countless concubines and maidservants in his household. Back then, when his first wife was pregnant with their child, he went to another province on business. His wife was so enraged by the concubine that she went into premature labor and gave birth to a baby boy. The baby boy was mute, unable to cry out. The legal wife, fearing the loss of her favor, tearfully pleaded with 7th Aunt to swap their children, promising a lifetime of wealth and prosperity for her son. 7th Aunt took the lady's money and fled far away with her husband, giving birth to a child not many years later. The faces of Mr. and Mrs. Lin Hexuan grew paler and paler as they listened. He grabbed the front of 7th Aunt's clothes and growled, "You're lying." 18. Whispers swirled around them. Auntie Chi wrenched her hand free. "Am I talking nonsense? The real young master of the Lin household is right here in the courtroom." Amidst the commotion from the crowd, she stared at Xiao Yun, grabbed his wrist, and revealed the birthmark. The son madam gave birth to that day was not only mute, but also had a bluish-purple birthmark on his hand. The crowd erupted in an uproar. Both Mother Xiao and I were left speechless, while Xiao Yun himself looked utterly stunned. Old Master Lin rushed forward, his voice trembling with disbelief. Are you telling the truth? If I am lying even in the slightest, may I be struck by lightning." I despised him for being mute, so I left him in the back alley. You can ask his current mother where she found him. All eyes turned to Mother Xiao. "Yuna really was found by me in the back alley." Old Master Lin, tears streaming down his face, embraced Xiao Yun, saying, my son, you truly are my son." An immense shock enveloped us all. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lin Hexuan and his wife quietly slip out of the yamen. The magistrate slapped the table and said, "Silence. Guards, take this thief into custody and hold him for trial." 7th Aunt knelt down once more, pleading, "Master, I beg you, please save my son." No one paid her any mind. The crowd dispersed, and 7th Aunt knelt in the center of the hall, tears streaming down her face. We declined Mr. Lin's invitation and headed straight back to the Xiao residence. Xiao Yun seemed not yet to have recovered, sitting on the threshold with a vacant gaze. "What are you thinking?" I naturally sat down beside him. He opened his mouth and made a sound, leaving both of us stunned. I exclaimed joyfully, "Xiao Yun, you can make a sound. Dr. Shua's medicine really works." We were immersed in joy when we saw my father and Chen Xiaojuan approaching from a distance, carrying bags of all sizes. We both stood up. My father's face was beaming with a wide smile as he said, my dear son-in-law, I've come to see you." How amusing, not a single word of concern since the wedding. And now, after that scene at the yamen, they suddenly remember they have a daughter and a son-in-law. 19. Mother Xiao politely welcomed them in and poured tea. My father stroked his beard. "I've heard your tofu pudding shop is doing very well. That puts my mind at ease." Chen Xiaojuan chimed in. Pu, you shouldn't hold a grudge against us anymore. If it weren't for the wrong sedan chair, you wouldn't have married Xiao Yun, such a fine husband. Should we call him Lin Yun now? She smiled as brightly as a flower, the corners of her eyes crinkling with laughter. I watched them coldly, then stood up. Please leave. We have nothing to offer you here. My father's face darkened. How dare you speak like that? Xiaojuan may not be your birth mother, but she has raised you all these years. I sneered at him. It was my mother who gave birth to me and raised me. You were often away from home and you didn't even see her for the last time. She cut ties with all her relatives to come to Qingshui town with you, hoping for a lifetime of devotion between just the two of you. But you secretly kept a mistress and even had a daughter with her. Father sighed helplessly. Your mother injured her body giving birth to you, and she couldn't keep the 2 pregnancies that followed. I just wanted a son to carry on the family legacy. I roared. What legacy do you have? Do you have any official rank or wealth? You're just a schoolteacher, completely unworthy of my mother. I then turned my gaze to Chen Xiaojuan, my eyes piercing like torches. After you entered this house, you never allowed me to study or practice calligraphy. At the slightest provocation, you would lock me in the woodshed. What gratitude for upbringing could there possibly be? They were trembling with rage, unable to speak. I went into the room and brought out a jar containing all the wages that Mrs. Xiao had given me, saying coldly, this money is enough to sever the bond between father and daughter. From now on I am no longer your daughter, Shen Chang. In life and death, sickness and health, we are strangers to each other. My father approached me, raised his hand, and I closed my eyes, bracing for a slap that never came. Xiao Yun firmly gripped his wrist, while Xiao's mother sighed repeatedly, saying, Master Shen, please go back first. Both father and daughter need to calm down. The 2 of them stomped out angrily, but after only a few steps, Chen Xiaojuan turned back to take the money jar. I collapsed into the chair, letting out a long sigh of relief. 20. The bean curd shop operated as usual, with Master Lin coming to sit in the shop every afternoon. He would leave only after Xiao Yun went to Dr. Xue for acupuncture. The midday sun blazed overhead, the shop devoid of customers. I sat leisurely at the entrance when 7th Aunt approached and suddenly knelt before me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Young mistress, I beg you to save my son. I helped her up, but she refused to rise. I sighed. You are Lin Hexuan's birth mother. You should go plead with him. 7th Aunt's tears gushed forth. I begged him, but he just threw a silver ingot at me and drove me away. My heart sank. I used to think Lin Hexuan was weak and selfish, but I never imagined he could be so heartless and ungrateful. I helped Mrs. Qi sit down inside the shop and said calmly, your son has committed a heinous crime. No matter who you beg, it won't help. Tears welled up in her eyes. I only hope for a lighter sentence. His father died early and I was too busy making a living. I didn't know he was mixing with those bandits and had been led astray. As soon as she finished speaking, she collapsed onto the table and wept, her thin body trembling uncontrollably. 7th Aunt sat in the shop for a long time, motionless. It wasn't until she overheard passers-by mention that her son's case had been made public, with a sentence of 15 years in prison, that she hurriedly left. Mother Xiao hung her head and murmured, the pitiful have their own share of blame. I nodded in agreement. Like mother, like child. And she abandoned the newborn Xiao Yun in the back alley. If Xiao's mother hadn't found him, he would likely have perished long ago. 21. When Xiao Yun returned from Dr. Xue's place, I asked him how he felt, and he shook his head. Since that day he made a sound, his voice has made no further progress. The shop's business was thriving. Xiao Yun needed treatment for his throat while also tending to the fields and grinding grain, so I discussed with Xiao's mother about hiring help. As soon as the notice was posted, Master Lin arrived with his servants and maids in tow. Xiao Sai, who honor, quickly greet the young master and young mistress, old Master Lin said with a smile. I see you need to hire help, it's better to have family members you can trust. Xiao Sai and Hu Honor grew up in the Lin household since childhood, so they're reliable. After several refusals, I said, all right, but we'll cover their wages. Elder Lin nodded, murmuring, your stepmother has been bedridden with illness these past few days, and I am getting on in years. Adding a few more hands will allow Yuner to take charge of the Lin family business on my behalf. Xiao Yun and I locked eyes, pretending not to have heard. With little Four and Hu Honor's help, I finally managed to free up my hands to start planning the opening of a branch store. Xiao Yun and I went to look at the shop, passing by the opium den where a crowd of people were cursing at the entrance. Peeking through the crack, I spotted my father. The aunt beside him remarked, Mr. Shen has such an addiction to tobacco, who could trust sending their child to his school anymore? My father also caught sight of me, grabbing hold of my sleeve. Could you spare me a bit of money? I'm craving a smoke. I looked at him, his temples graying, his body gaunt and emaciated, no longer the man he once was. Xiaoyun handed him a silver ingot, and he ran off laughing into the opium den. With reddened eyes, I pulled Xiaoyun away. When we reached a secluded spot, I threw myself into Xiaoyun's arms. A wave of bitterness surged in my heart, and tears broke through like a dam. I resented him for betraying my mother, for treating me with such disregard, but I resented myself even more for still grieving over his downfall. 22. The shop for the branch was selected, and the day was already late. In the Xiao family's small courtyard, Xiao Sai was still tidying up the stone mill. After he and Huaner arrived, the Xiao family's home felt cramped. I told Mother Xiao that I wanted to buy a larger house. Mother Xiao's lips twitched. You really don't plan to return to the Lin family estate? I said I will certainly follow you. As for Xiaoyun, I respect his choice. Tell me the truth, do you and Yuna really have no romantic feelings for each other? My face instantly flushed hot, and I lowered my head, murmuring softly, I don't know. Yuna treats you how I see clearly with my own eyes. You will surely be a loving couple. I took Mother Xiao's arm. Mother, don't worry about these things. Xiao's mother's eyes welled up with tears. What did you just call me? Mother. She opened her arms and held me tightly. After a good night's sleep, we had breakfast and were ready to open the shop. Huaner pushed open the door, and there stood Chen Xiaojuan, looking exhausted at the doorstep, her eyes vacant. Seeing me, she immediately knelt on both knees. I chuckled inwardly, wondering what was going on. Ever since everyone found out that Xiaoyun was Master Lin's biological son, people kept dropping to their knees in front of me. Chen Xiaojuan grabbed the hem of my skirt and said hoarsely, Piyo, you must save your sister. She said that ever since Master Lin found out Lin Hexuan wasn't his biological son, he had treated her and her husband with extreme coldness. Lady Lin was even more harsh, cutting off their monthly allowance and treating Shen Piazi like a servant. Shen Piazi refused to submit and secretly poisoned Lady Lin's meals. Lady Lin grew increasingly ill and several physicians could not determine the cause. Finally, Master Lin summoned physician Xue, who declared that Lady Lin was not merely ill but had been poisoned, and the toxins had already spread to her internal organs. Master Lin promptly reported the incident to the authorities. The constables searched Shen Piazi's room and found poison. Last night, Lin Hexuan and his wife were taken into custody and imprisoned. I pulled at the hem of my skirt, my voice low and hoarse. She attempted to murder her mother-in-law, a grave crime. Pleading with me is useless. Piazi is your own sister. Mother Xiao stepped forward, speaking gently to persuade me. Go. I fear you may regret it later. 23. We arrived at the Yamen, where the magistrate was in the midst of the interrogation. Lin Hexuan defended himself, saying everything was done by Shen Piazi. I had no knowledge of it. Shen Piazi, looking shocked, glared at him. That poison was given to me by you. I only told you, this medicine requires careful dosage in small amounts. It can cure your headaches, but too much can kill. How could I have known you would plot to harm Mother? Shen Piazi's face was deathly pale, her lips trembling. It was you who plotted against me. Silence, you couple, do not fight like dogs. The evidence is conclusive, and you are both guilty. Sentenced to 20 lashes and 5 years in prison. Lin Hexuan's eyes were vacant, and Shen Piazi's face was even more ashen. The Yamen runners brought in the torture instruments, tying the two of them onto a long bench. Shen Piazi screamed desperately, while Chen Xiaojuan rushed over to take the beating for her. She cried out to me, Piyo, please, plead for your sister's mercy. I wanted to step forward, but my wrist was tightly grasped by Xiaoyun. The magistrate on the bench angrily shouted, Bold woman, if you obstruct the execution again, you will be charged as well. Chen Xiaojuan, pale-faced, knelt to the side. After the flogging was finished, both of them were bruised and bleeding, their faces deathly pale. Chen Xiaojuan cried as she reached out to hold Shen Piazi's hand. Gigi. She murmured to herself, it's all my fault for suggesting you marry into the Lin family, only to find out it was a sham. If you had married into the Xiao family, you wouldn't be in this situation. The constables dragged the two away. Chen Xiaojuan, her eyes bloodshot, glared at me. It was you. You stole my daughter's marriage arrangement. You deserve to die the most. She pulled the hairpin from her head and charged at me. Xiaoyun stepped in front of me and was stabbed in the heart, blood gushing out. Chen Xiaojuan, terrified, stumbled back a few steps and tried to flee in panic, only to be stopped by the soldiers at the gate. Xiaoyun, you mustn't die. My heart tightened as I pressed my hand over the wound on his chest, shouting at the soldiers, hurry, fetch a doctor. The Lin residence was very close to the government office, and the Lin family servants helped Xiaoyun into the house. Dr. Xue came out of the room and said solemnly, Madam, don't worry. The stab wound isn't deep. Young Master Xiao has lost a lot of blood and will need to rest for some time. Xiao's mother nudged my back. Go in and see him. He needs you the most right now. Pushing the door open, I found Xiao Yun sitting by the bed, his upper body bare, his chest tightly wrapped in bandages, with a few specks of blood seeping through over the heart. His skin was already dark, which made his lips appear even paler. I sat beside him, gently touching the wound. Does it hurt a lot? He took my hand, shook his head, an indescribable emotion welling up in his chest. I lifted my eyes, met his gaze, leaned in and kissed his lips. That inexplicable feeling finally found its release. Xiao Yun trembled at first, then wrapped his arm around my waist, devouring me with his kiss. 24. Xiao Yun was injured and couldn't move easily, so we stayed at the Lin residence. The Lin household was bustling with people, with undercurrents of tension, and Master Lin's concubines were each more cunning than the last. I personally took care of Xiao Yun, not daring to entrust the task to anyone else. Dr. Shui came every day to perform acupuncture and change his bandages. I asked him whether Xiao Yun's voice would ever recover, but he shook his head in silence. With Xiao Asai and Hu Honor helping out at the tofu pudding shop, I felt quite at ease. In my free time, I started experimenting with new flavors, asking Xiao Yun to be my taste tester. He teased me, making exaggerated expressions of disgust, which made me think my creations were terrible. I took a taste myself. The flavor was absolutely exquisite. Fuming, I pounded his chest, and Xiao Yun wore an expression of genuine pain. I suddenly remembered the wound on his chest had just healed. I hurriedly apologized, and he smiled, pulling me into his embrace, softly kissing my earlobe. Today is my birthday, and Mother Xiao came to the Lin residence early in the morning to make me a bowl of longevity noodles. After lunch, I was thinking of heading back to the tofu shop to take a look, but Mother Xiao said, "You two go have fun. I've already put up a notice. The shop is closed for the day in celebration of the owner's joyous occasion." Xiao Yun mysteriously led me into the backyard and draped a fox fur cloak over my shoulders. I was puzzled. It was only early autumn, why wear something so thick? He took my hand and led me down into the cellar, which turned out to be the Lin family's ice house. Goose feathers drifted everywhere like falling snow, the surroundings a vast expanse of white. Underfoot was crushed ice, crunching with each step, as though I were standing in a snowy field. I was stunned, my heart brimming with joy. "Do you like it, Yu? My heart trembling, I looked at him. Xiao Yun was speaking to me. "Yu, you heard right, I can speak now." Tears of excitement welled up, blurring my vision. Xiao Yun continued, "I've thought for a long time about how to give you a snowfall. By a twist of fate, I discovered this ice cellar. Yu, happy birthday. Will you be my wife? Young mistress, please say yes." Little Si and I have been fluttering these goose feathers until our arms are sore. Little Si, who had been hiding nearby, couldn't help but speak up. My lips trembled. "When did you learn to speak?" He smiled. "A long time ago. I wanted to surprise you." I was so angry that I punched him. "You actually kept it from me." I turned and ran, but he pulled me back with force, and I fell into his arms. It was so quiet I could hear each other's heartbeats. Xiao Yun moved his wrist upward, cupped the back of my neck, and pressed down a scorching kiss. The kiss left me breathless. With teary eyes, I looked at him, my body growing weak. He swept me up in his arms, carried me into the room, and closed the door all in one fluid motion. Xiao Yun laid me on the bed, undid my clothes, and asked in a low, husky voice, "Is this okay, Yu?" Asking for consent with words, but the hands never stop. I just watched a heavy snow fall, then weathered a fierce rainstorm, leaving everything feeling utterly drenched. Gentle warmth soothes the pain, my heart burns, my consciousness drifts away, hearing only him whispering by my ear, "Yu." 25. We settled in at the Lin residence, while Lord Lin and Lady Lin, along with several concubines, moved to a suburban estate, claiming it was for recuperation. The Lin family's business was officially handed over to Xiao Yun. Just after taking over, he was still adjusting. I was busy with the branch shops. The tofu pudding seasonings were portioned out by me each day and then delivered to the two stores. Seeing how busy we were day in and day out, Mother Xiao simply moved into the Lin residence to manage the household affairs in the backyard. Xiao Yun and I slept in separate rooms, but he would slip into my chamber under the cover of night. When the wind howled and darkness fell, he would toy with my fingers and ask me when I would give him a proper title. I knew what he meant. The original marriage certificate bore the name Shen Piazi. In other words, Xiao Yun was not yet my legitimate husband. I smiled and held his hand, which had become much smoother after not doing rough work for a long time, and calmly said, "It depends on your performance." He suddenly sat up. Isn't that enough?" I pushed him away and sat down on a nearby chair. "Who said that just because we've done that, we must get married? If you're not good enough, I can easily leave you and find someone else." He reached out and pulled me onto his lap. You're bullying me. My retort was swallowed in the kiss, moonlight streaming through the window crack, the long night just beginning. 26. My third shop opened as scheduled. To avoid suspicion, I didn't choose a shop in the Lin family's property but set up in the neighboring town. Mother Xiao passed her tofu pudding making skills to Xiao Si, who now manages the new shop. Everyone praised us, mother and daughter, for our capability. Finally, when they spoke of us, it was no longer as someone's wife. Women need not live in the shadow of their husbands. When closing the shop, Mother Xiao seemed hesitant, so I asked her if something was the matter. She said, "A few days ago, I ran into your father on the street, being chased and beaten by people from the opium den. Your father's school has long been empty. After your stepmother was imprisoned, he sold the house and spent his days in the opium den. I followed him all the way to the city gate, and then he disappeared." I fell silent for a moment, then said indifferently, "Let it be. He brought this upon himself." As dusk approached, we returned to the Lin estate. Xiaoyun pulled me up onto the roof, saying he had something to give me to celebrate the opening of the new shop. Sitting on the roof, Xiaoyun looked at the hairpin in my hair. This silver hairpin? It was the one he had given me. Don't get the wrong idea, I just thought my hair was a bit plain today, so I used it as an accent. Xiaoyun smiled without saying a word, then pulled out a lantern from behind him. "Look, it's been cold lately, and I managed to catch these." I looked closely and saw fireflies fluttering inside the lantern. It was truly beautiful. Xiaoyun spoke with a mysterious tone. "You, I know you don't want to borrow anyone's light, but you are the moon itself. If anyone's borrowing light, it's me who's borrowing yours." He handed the lantern to me and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. For a long time, my life was like an endless night, until I met the moon. You are my moon." I gently leaned against his shoulder, a warm current flowing in my heart, pretending to be nonchalant. "Xiaoyun, let's get married." Night fell and the stars twinkled. Xiaoyun's gaze was pure and intense. In my eyes he would always be that sincere young man. Extra Chapter 1. Xiaoyun was adopted. He had known it since childhood, for his parents never made a secret of it. At the age of 5, his father wanted to send him to school, but he refused. He felt like a mute, and since studying only added to his family's burden, it was better to help his parents with odd jobs at the stall. Later, when father fell ill and passed away, Xiaoyun became the main labor force of the family. Plowing the fields and turning the millstone, it was all him. In the summer, mother rented a few plots of land in the suburbs and planted crops. As the sun was about to set, he went to water them. On his way back, he encountered a girl, her face pale and streaked with tears. She asked Xiaoyun if he could swim, begging him to hurry and save her younger sister. Without another word, Xiaoyun rushed into the lake and rescued the little girl. The girl by the shore hadn't yet recovered from her emotions, her eyes glistening as she looked at him and asked for his name. Those watery eyes made Xiaoyun nervous. For the first time, he felt ashamed of being mute. He didn't want to be discovered by the girl, so he waved his hand and walked away, dripping wet. The girl's father came to the door, and only then did Xiaoyun learn that the girl was Master Shen's eldest daughter. And the one he saved was the stepdaughter of the Shen family. The Shen family wanted to express their gratitude, and after much thought, Mother Xiao asked for the marriage between the two families. Xiaoyun felt a sense of loss, though he couldn't quite pinpoint where his unease came from. It wasn't until the wedding sedan arrived and Xiaoyun, in his daze, saw Shen Pei's face beneath the bridal veil, that he finally let out a long sigh of relief. Shen Pei said she was going to marry into the Lin family. Before she even entered the gate, she ran away. Madame Xiao soothed the guests while Xiaoyun secretly followed her. When he arrived at the entrance of the Lin family's estate, he saw Shen Pei coming out listlessly. Xiaoyun followed behind her, silent and unnoticed. Unaware of the time, it began to rain, and Shen Pei continued to wander aimlessly. Xiaoyun bought an umbrella from a nearby grocery store, held it over her, and gestured for her to come home with him first. 2. Later, from the neighbors, Xiaoyun and his mother learned the truth. Shen Pei's stepmother had secretly switched the brides on both sides so that her own daughter could live a life of comfort. Xiaoyun felt a deep sorrow for the girl's misfortune. She fell ill, running a persistent high fever. Day after day, Xiaoyun stayed by the stove, brewing medicine in the hope of delivering it to her. Stopped by Xiao's mother, she simply said that she was unsure of Yuer's feelings, and for him to rashly enter a woman's room would be improper. While her mother was inside feeding the medicine, Xiaoyun stood guard at the door, listening for any movement. 3 days later, Shen Pei recovered from her illness. Xiao's mother taught her how to grind ink, and she proved to be clever and quick to learn, mastering it at once. That day, as they closed up the stall and returned home, Shen Pei's stepsister and her fiancé came to visit, or more precisely, to show off. Shan Piyu lifted her chin, letting them go, her gaze defiant. Xiao Yun couldn't tell if she still held old feelings for Mr. Lin or if her heart had long been as still as water. Thinking of these things, his heart would flutter with unease. In early spring, a north wind blew at night. Xiao Yun wanted to go check on the seedlings in the fields, and Shan Piyu followed along. The girl sat with him on the ridge of the field, telling him stories she had heard from her mother. She said she wanted to see a snowfall, and that it snows in the capital in winter. Everything is a vast expanse of white all around, and walking in the snow makes a crunching sound. Xiao Yun only smiled, silently thinking to himself that he must take her to see the snow someday. The girl fell asleep on his shoulder without realizing it, and as dawn broke, he carried her home. The sleeping girl had rosy cheeks and tightly clutched the coat he had draped over her. Xiao Yun suddenly felt an unwillingness to let go, a stubborn thought that took hold of him. 3. Shan Piyu's mind was filled with whimsical ideas. She helped Xiao's mother make tofu pudding, mixing in flavors never tasted before, and it turned out surprisingly delicious. The shop went from selling tofu to selling tofu pudding, and business was booming. Xiao Yun felt that Shan Piyu was different from what he had imagined, surprising him every day. Shan Piyu took the initiative to offer to teach him how to write. Under the candlelight, the girl held his hand, guiding him stroke by stroke. Xiao Yun tilted his head slightly, catching a glimpse of her fluttering eyelashes and intensely focused gaze, making his heart race. Sometimes when Xiao Yun was practicing calligraphy, he would unconsciously write Shan Piyu's name over and over again. He is not a cowardly man, he wants to confess his feelings, using picking beans as an excuse to invite her along. Shan Piyu, with her sharp tongue honed at the tofu stall, looked utterly adorable as she haggled with the farmers. She walked happily along the field ridge, with Xiao Yun carefully protecting her from behind. For a moment, Xiao Yun felt time stand still at this moment, and it was just as well. They encountered Lin Hexuan's carriage at the city gate. The man tried to take Shan Piyu's hand, but Xiao Yun refused to let him, stepping in front to block him. Shan Piyu resolutely refused Lin Hexuan, and Xiao Yun's anxious heart settled firmly back into place. At night while she was fast asleep, he wrapped the silver hairpin he had bought in advance inside a note, then bundled it up with a handkerchief and placed it on the door frame. Xiao Yun hoped that the moment she woke up, it would be the first thing she saw. Everyone knows what giving a hairpin to a woman means. Shan Piyu chased after him. Xiao Yun opened his mouth excitedly, wanting to call her name, wanting to say that he liked her. But he couldn't do it, and it vexed him. Shan Piyu told him she needed time to consider. Xiao Yun agreed he respected her wish. 4. When Thief suddenly rushed out, he didn't think twice, blocking the blade for her with his bare hands. After his mother, Shan Piyu was the first and most important person in his heart. At the medical clinic, he happened to meet Dr. Shui, who said his muteness could be cured. Xiao Yun was so excited he couldn't sleep all night, he had so much he wanted to say to Shan Piyu. The days passed in an orderly fashion. With the new shop opening, they were incredibly busy. When the shop closed in the evening, Lin Hexuan also came. Xiao's mother pulled Xiao Yun away first, but he didn't go far. He just stood silently at the corner, watching the two of them. Shan Piyu showed no mercy, exposing Lin Hexuan's thoughts. Xiao Yun was overjoyed in his heart, truly the girl he liked. In the evening, while practicing calligraphy, he couldn't help but take her hand. He wrote her a note he liked her, feeling both anxious and unworthy, yet unable to resist wanting to have her. Xiao Yun never expected the turning point in his life to come so quickly. He was the true son of Master Lin. His nominal in-laws shamelessly came to visit them, but Shan Piyu was determined to send them away. She was never as fragile as she appeared on the surface, she had taught him yet another lesson. Even kindness must have its edge. 5. Shan Piyu did not let recent events hinder her from opening her shop. She is planning to open a branch store once more. As they were about to go out, they ran into Piyu's stepmother again. They went to the yamen together, and in the courtroom, Lin Hexuan and his wife had no defense, ending up in prison with clanging chains. That vicious stepmother pulled out her hairpin, intending to kill Shan Piyu. Xiao Yun didn't hesitate and shielded her without a second thought. She was more precious than his own life. Fortunately, the injuries were not serious. Shan Piyu pushed the door open and came in to see him, with glistening tears welling up in the girl's eyes. Her burning lips landed on Xiao Yun's mouth. They confirmed each other's feelings. 6. With Dr. Shui's help, Xiao Yun was able to speak again. At first, his words weren't very clear, so he asked Dr. Shui not to tell anyone yet. One day, after waking from his nap, Huaner mentioned that the kitchen had prepared some shaved ice and asked if he wanted some. Xiao Yun was puzzled where had the shaved ice come from. He wrote a note to inquire. Huaner took him to the ice cellar, and he suddenly saw the light. On Shen Piyu's birthday, he gave her a snowfall and confessed his love for her. Though it was meant to be a gift for her, Xiao Yun received the long-awaited warmth and softness in return. The girl he had loved so cautiously was finally, completely his. Outsiders think they are a couple, but he is greedy, wanting that marriage certificate with both their names written on it. Shen Piyu teased him, saying if he didn't perform well, she would replace him. Her thoughts are always much more free-spirited than those of other women. That's because she has the confidence to be so. Now, Shen Piyu is the proprietress of 3 tofu pudding shops, shining ever more brightly. Xiao Yun strives to match her, using what she taught him to manage the Lin family's business. After several proposals, he finally dispelled the girl's concerns. In truth, the girl doesn't know that he became radiant for her sake. Even if life is like a long night, may you always be my moon.